What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the debut project by rapper Pooh Shiesty. Basically this project is called Shiesty Season Certified, and it came out, particularly the original album came out in the winter of 2021, but the advanced edition, the certified edition, which is the version of the product I'm reviewing, came out in the spring of 2022. So the thing about it is just the fact that Pooh Shiesty was on the come up on Gucci Mane's 1017 records as far as those pitch can happen. He's one of the new era type of affiliates that Gucci Mane particularly kind of had. Gucci Mane, when he went to prison, like the early 2010s, kind of had a falling out with a lot of his artists, like OJ the Juice Man, Waka Flocka Flame, a bunch of folks like that, Frenchie, Woo the Kid, some of those type of folks. It just kind of went scattershot. A lot of those folks went separate ways as far as those pitches going to happen, but Gucci Mane found some more folks like the mid-2010s with albums like Mr. Davis and some of those type of ones, like the Evil Genius, some of those type of products that he dropped in like the mid and late 2010s, but he found further folks in like the early 2020s. Particular one that was going to blow up pretty large was Pooh Shiesty as far as those pitches going to happen. Now the unfortunate thing about Pooh Shiesty is just the fact that right directly around the time when this product was coming out, he got arrested and got sentenced to like at least a 5-year prison. Got sentenced to at least like a 5-year prison sentence as far as those pitches can happen. So it's unfortunate that the aspect behind that particularly happening, that just like this tends to happen with some of these type of folks. Like with Pop Smoke, he died right as he was getting ready to blow up big time as far as those pitches kind of happen. And with like Bobby Shmurda, he was getting ready to blow up big time back in like the mid 2010s, but he got hit with like a 7-year prison sentence. That seems to be kind of what's happening here with Pooh Shiesty. Unfortunately, the aspect of like the viciousness of the tangent that he was on with this particular album, Shiesty Season, and the advancements of like the deluxe editions that he had planned was not really amalgamated because of his prison sentence. This is kind of the aspect that's very unfortunate because this is a particular vicious project. Now, once again, because this particular album, the whole package of Shiesty Season, including the thing about it is the whole package of Shiesty Season, including like the deluxe editions, both the spring deluxe and then the certified deluxe, have over 30 songs. So I'm not going to review that particular. I'm not going to review 30-something songs on here, but I will review the certified edition. Eventually, I'll probably get the Shiesty Season, the original, along with probably the spring deluxe, which adds like 4 or 5 or 6 more songs on there. So we'll get to some of that type fare eventually. But I'm just going to review this particular packaging here just to see the advancement. Yeah. Now I would say in terms of like early 2020s type fare, this is a classic album here just within the pitch behind it. I like what particularly kind of happened. It's definitely a notable type product out of this decade as far as those pitches kind of happen with some new type fare. But unfortunately, the aspect by the time Pooh Shiesty does eventually get out of prison, I just question like the overall quality of what's going to happen here just within the fare behind it. Because most of these rapper cats, when they go to prison for like a good while, and it particularly has a length of time that they've been in prison, like with Young Thug or Pooh Shiesty or Bobby Shmurda, some of these type of folks, other folks like that have that in particular, it definitely tends to change their trajectory as far as those pitches going to happen. Just the old fare, it really makes like for like a rebirth and a transformation that doesn't always cross over into something more powerful. It changes them to at least to where they don't have like life fuck us, but it's just kind of within the pitches saying that this original tangent of some of this stuff here is a pretty potent type batch to kind of get. It's just kind of questioning if I don't doubt that Pooh Shiesty will be able to have further hit albums. It's just kind of within the pitch that this, like once again, this vicious tangent that he had on here with some of the hit songs. I do remember the song Back in Blood very briefly around those pitches kind of happened. I was not as full-blown paying attention when he was really blowing up in like the fall of 2020, winter of 2021, but I do remember at least some of those type fares. I did catch a little bit of the music video around those particular times, so just the pitch behind it is questioning like the concept of what particularly happened. But this is a classic here, just to be able to say that. It's just kind of the fair that it just feels, I don't want to say like a one shot, but it's just kind of the concept that this was a sweet spot that just didn't get like a sequel or anything close. But there was at least the deluxes, so he did record a lot of music. But so yeah, basically on the certified edition, there's 10 extra songs on here, and one of those is a single that charted pretty decently, and this is SCV's Black on Black with Jack Harlow, I'd have to say. So this song's pretty dope. And basically, just to go ahead and say, when I say this is a classic album, out of the new 10 songs that are on the certified edition, which I'm reviewing, I recommend all 10. So the certified edition is going to get a 10 out of 10, pretty excellent type fare, is what I'd say within that. But SCV's Black on Black is like a simmering kind of villa music to kind of get here. SCV's Black on Black is like a simmering kind of villa music to kind of get here. I'd say just some great summer evening glaze kind of have within that, and it's like a smoke good kind of dying exquisite type tone kind of get within that pitch. It's some real good type pitch just within like the concept of just more out and about, just like in a more, like I would definitely say Latin rap type sense just within the tone behind it. Just some real nice clips to kind of have, just more Texas fried type music, some of that type fare just within the pitch. This really feels like something you'd listen to in like, really feels like something you'd listen to in like Spain or Rome or Greece, one of those type places. It's something that Pop Smoke would kind of do. Pop Smoke was pretty good at this. And just to say on top of that, the style that, like to describe Pooh Shiesty a little bit with the particular pitch about this particular album, it kind of reminds me of like a combination of like Pop Smoke circa the days of when he was kind of in his like vibes of like Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon, and like his second mixtape, the last one he dropped before his death in his lifetime, and then like Future from like the mid 2010s. If you like albums by Future like Evol and Future and Hendrix and Dirty Sprite 2, some of those type ones where he was just predominant like the Instagram live type fare, and every, you know, you were hearing Future songs on Instagram like probably 20-30 times a day, pitches like that, some of that type fare. It's just a good amalgamation of that. I definitely think had Pooh Shiesty been around longer, not to say that he's not, you know, just if he had not had his prison sentence, I think he probably would have been like a good face of rap for like a good portion of this decade. Probably would have been some excellent type. Definitely would have been some pretty excellent type fare. I can just tell by these singles just within the pitch. He was definitely, he had that same Pop Smoke kind of respite about him as far as those aspects, just in being able to deliver upon some of these type, just predominant type factors, especially being a face of the new school. I think he would have been like the replacement to Pop Smoke. He just came out like less than a year afterward, and it probably would have been pretty vicious, but he was definitely within the concept. This is not necessarily drill, but we'll get to the concept of it. But yeah, this SUV's Black on Black, this is probably the most commercial ready of these. Definitely reminds me of something Pop Smoke would do, and it has Jack Harlow on here, which is a relatively trendy type cat, at least he was a few years ago. Now Jack Harlow a year ago, back in late 2023, was kind of predominant, but I just don't really know as to who's been really popping. I think Yeet has kind of replaced Jack Harlow, which is a pretty interesting transaction. Ever since like the Kendrick kind of predominance that's been happening since like the spring of 2024, it's just kind of been within the pitch that Yeet has been kind of like the in-between kind of like de facto white boy for like the scene as far as this pitch can happen. Before that it was Jack Harlow, before that it was Post Malone. It was just kind of within the pitch that Yeet's like the new go-to type one as far as those pitch can happen. But Jack Harlow, just back in 2022, late 2021, some of those type fairs was definitely pretty popping just within the pitch. But I look after just being able to say that this is excellent type fair. This is definitely something that just, when I say villa music, it's just kind of within the concept, some of that graceful typeness that Pop Smoke would kind of do, and just like some good kind of like this kind of more fielded and more countryside and like a more kind of international type sense within the tones. This good concept, real pop rap ready and like that particular fair. But yeah, so every song in here I recommend. So some nice ones on here, like there's a very tensive feeling about this product. There's some ones on here like Narcos and No Clues and some of these types of ones, and Switches and Drax, some of these type of ones. I just would have to say it might be Drake's, but Switches and Drax I just would have to say within the tone. It just is kind of within the pitch that there's just a very much like bravado. I feel like the advancement of this particular sound just has the pitch behind it of just nailing like 2010s trap with like advancing that particular style and just making it a little bit like Pop Smoke in like his final days of songs like Dior and some of those type of ones that just really feel like powerful drill, but it's not drill. It's kind of the pitch. It's difficult to describe what this particular genre would wind up being, but it just kind of has like a very much in your face and like a haunting kind of aspect. It's just like a bunch of like bats flying out of a cave, something like that. Just the real tense of this typeness, and just like a swirling kind of aspect, just like some haunting type appeals within it. But it also is trippy, so it's just a very, but it also does that within the style of like evening makeshift. So it's just kind of the concept where it's not quite as vicious, and I mean it is as vicious as Pop Smoke, but it's just not quite as much right out, like it's not quite as feral as Pop Smoke particularly was. It's not like, I feel like I would say Pooh Shiesty style is more like Lil Durk, which is just a little bit more passive aggressive about it. It's not quite as crazy as Pop Smoke, but it is within the pitch of being able to say that it is definitely like, it's just a haunting type sense, just more centered to like evening makeshift. There's some ones on here like Certified, Hunting Ops, and like I would say like Squeeze on Them, some of these type of ones that just have that particular appeal of just being like solid enough makeshift. I would also say SUV's Black on Black some good makeshift as well. But so a good particular one on here would be 7.62 God Reloaded, I'd have to say. This is like a good initial kind of venue commotion to kind of get here, just thawing out in like occasions. I would definitely feel like this the initial kind of warm up to folks and this pitch like that in general, as far as that particular atmosphere kind of happens. Just going to like a night venue, the initial dap, some of that type pitch, and just kicking off things. Just kind of homies smoke a couple. I would definitely say here, just really like the embrace of this particular one. This is probably like, I mean, there's not a super ton of venue songs on here. I'd say probably apart from like It's Up and 7.62 God Reloaded, I'd say particularly about, there's not super tons. Like this is a lot more just evening commerce and just like the tensiveness of just being ready to ride out. A lot of this is just the dark fashion and just kind of being like a dark night, some of that type fare just within the pitch, and just really blistering kind of night appeals. Just that same sort of vibe that you would get from that thrilling energy, considering that this was just a couple years after like the Pop Smoke era as far as those pitch kind of happens. It's the same sort of appeal, just like the immersive kind of feeling about it. But 7.62 God Reloaded is a nice nightclub bop kind of get on here. And it's the same thing with It's Up. It's like a glitzy kind of nightclub bop here, I'd have to say. Just a good basic kind of contemporary. I feel like here, just marinate, sip some drinks, sip slow, some of those type pitches. Just standard shoot the moon within that fare. So I do like some of these type of ones. Really, Back in Blood is a real hit song. That's definitely the sort of song that I think this decade particularly needs. Is the appeal and energy of that particular one. That seems like one of the more kind of signature and notable songs out of the 2020s decade, it has to say, and it's pretty excellent type fare. Lil Durk and Pooh Shiesty basically nailed this particular vibe. Just more songs like this would have been pretty vicious. Just kind of the concept that it's just within the aspect of getting some of those type tones. But I do feel like songs like It's Up and 7.62 God are some nice type appeals for like some glitzy kind of nightclub dap and some of those type fares, I'd have to say. But No Clues is a nice one. This is like a vicious kind of, No Clues is like a vicious kind of dark head trip, I'd have to say. Just some tensive kind of commotion kind of get, just ready for action. I'd have to say a little bit quicker than Next Up, I'd have to say, but it is some good night spark kind of get. So yeah, I just would say it's just very, I do like the dramatic type flair of Next Up, No Clues, some of these type ones. But Next Up is basically like another dramatic kind of trap commerce to kind of get here. Just a snaring kind of tensive feeling. Just some night ride out to definitely kind of get. Just grab some goodies, pitches like that. This one's a little bit more, and this one's not quite as vicious as like No Clues is, some of those type of ones, I'd have to say. I want to say there's at least one more song like that on here in particular. I think it's actually, well, it might actually be Narcos, I'd have to say, but just within the pitch, this is definitely one that kind of has like an advancement of like the 3-6 Mafia type sound of just night type commerce and just smoking some swishers, just grabbing frozen burritos, some of those type pitches like standard fare just within the pitch, just the 2020s rendition of some of that. And this is just a good song to have like some night thoughts kind of have within that pitch. It says Gucci Mane on there and Lil Uzi Vert, so it's just a nice type pitch, kind of get some of that. There are some pretty big name guests on here, just a good aspect behind this. Lil Durk is on the song Switches and Drags, which I think I talked about that one. Yeah, I talked about Switches and Drags. It's real nice. Maybe I didn't. I'm not sure if I talked about Switches and Drags, but this is probably one of the best songs on here in terms of like the immediate type of appeal. This is like, obviously, if you like Back in Blood, Lil Durk is briefly on this song as far as those pitches can happen, along with ESTG and Moneybag Yo. I'd say it's like a brooding, kind of tensive traverse to kind of get here, and just a contemplative and Dracula-like product of night fares kind of have within that sense. So this one really has some of that type fare, just real elegant type one, like a trap type sense. Really like the appeal behind this one. Yeah, I just would say Switches and Drax is just like a real haunting type appeal behind it. Just elegance, just within the fare of being able to do it. Just some real graceful typeness. Reminds me definitely like, kind of reminds me of some of the fare of like Tech Nine and Hobson, some of those type folks. So it's an interesting type pitch because there weren't a ton of 2010s type rappers really doing that particular type fare as far as that kind of happens. Maybe Lil Durk did in certain senses, but not terribly super frequent. I'd have to say Chief Keef, some of those type folks. Narcos is a quality one. It's like a dark, tensive kind of 2020s trap commerce to kind of get here. Just a bleary kind of fast times. I would definitely feel like here, just new era kind of Instagram life just within the pitch, IG life, some of that type fare. It's like a taste of night gliss, I'd have to say, and this song hops pretty well. So it's just a good concept, just the advancement of like Pop Smoke and Future type sounds, some of those type folks, Moneybag Yo, and like folks like that. I'd have to say kind of a little bit of Travis Scott within that particular pitch, some of those type fares, I'd have to say. This typical kind of bleary, kind of just in motion kind of 2010s trap, just in a more kind of dark type pitch behind it. And the thing, like the particular fare behind it, is it just really has like that kind of smog type feeling of just like Pop Smoke within some of like his most haunting songs that he managed to do within his brief career, I'd say, within that pitch. But it's just kind of the aspect that a lot of this particular sound and just really feels, you just get an excellent sense of drear on this particular product of just like some blurry quick times living, I'd have to say. So some good type fare for that. I'm trying to think of other songs I haven't talked on here. Hunting Ops and Certified are two of these more kind of like makeshift type song. Certified is like a dredgy kind of dark evening haze kind of get here. Definitely like some goth. Certified is definitely a nice one here. It's like a dredgy kind of dark evening haze kind of get. Just some gothic makeshift commerce. I would definitely feel like, and it's just kind of a mist the town in like a haunting mist. This particular song is just a mist the town in like a haunting mist kind of get here. So Certified is just kind of a pasted type one. Just kind of standard commerce and traverse just within the pitch behind it. Just in a more haunting type sense. Just something. This is just some great gothic trap to kind of get within like a relative workshop type setting just within the pitch behind. It's relatively centered, pretty similar to like SUVs Black on Black and Hunting Ops, just within that glaze type sense. Just a good aspect of just having like that shadowy type appeal within like the standard just kind of workaday type fare. I mean, it could almost be Hustler's Makeshift, but it's just kind of within the pitch that this is not as much hustle bound. It's just real straightforward with it. So it's just the pitch of this. I mean, the thing about Pooh Shiesty is he's pretty similar to Lil Durk within the aspect of just being more rugged, street bound within the pitch behind him, but it's just the aspect of this, the product of listening to these particular bops within the appeal, like day-to-day living as far as those pitches can happen, is just the aspect behind it. But there's definitely some ones, it's just surprising the amount of pop rap that's kind of on here within this. It's not necessarily pop rap, but at least pop dark trap, at least pop dark trap within a sense, just haunting within the aspect of being able to do it. So it just advanced some of these sounds within the pitch. I mean, it's not terribly many folks to really coin this, just because the concept of this is relatively recent, so it's just kind of original for that particular fare. Once again, I feel like it's just an amalgamation like Future and Pop Smoke, some of those type fares, just within like the edginess and the gothicness that I'd say. But Hunting Ops is another nice one. It's like an evolution of the Haunting Dirty Sprite 2 and mid 2010s Future kind of get within that tone. Just as that particular sound, just a gothic kind of evening work shift outs kind of gets. So this one is kind of very similar to Certified, just a little bit more kind of ambient with it and just more mellowed out just within the pitch of just standard commerce and Traverse in mind. But yeah, there's a bunch of Traverse songs on this particular product. You'll get more vicious ones like Narcos and No Clues and Next Up and some of those type of ones. And there's a couple of club bops on here like It's Up and 7.62 God. I actually don't think I've talked about Squeeze on them yet, but I'll talk about that one before I get to like the description. But just being able to say, there's just a lot of commerce on this particular product, just being able to say. But Squeeze on them's like a dreary and trippy kind of cruise around to kind of get here. Just a thumping kind of vehicle companion, I would definitely feel like, into some typical kind of stunt nights. This particular song, Squeeze on them's just more vintage, like late 2010s traps, as far as those pitches kind of happen. This is one of those trippy type ones that you kind of listen to when being warped in a whip, some pitches like that, as far as that kind of goes along with it. Which reminds more of like Migos type sound and some of those type of folks. Trying to think of some other ones like a little bit of Ouija Mac in there. Some of those particular type ones that just have that trippy kind of vibe about it. Can't really think of as much full blown, but I would say Lil Baby, but it's not quite Lil Baby's type sound. He's a little bit darker than the pitch. It's something a little bit like Future, almost Travis Scott, but not quite. Just a little bit trippier within that relative sense. So it's a little bit more like a kind of floss type sense that has, I suppose. It's kind of like a good thump of one just to be able to get within that tone and just like some good turn up just within the aspect of really going out to flex with some of that type fare. So yeah, the vehicle boundness of this particular product is definitely there. I mean, apart from songs like It's Up and 7.62 God, for the most part, there's a lot more just pizzazz than just the standard night. Some of these are more makeshift in like a gothic sense. Some of these are just kind of more attentive kind of ride out type songs, like similar to Pop Smoke. Some of these are just some stunt type songs. And some of these kind of have the aspect of just kind of being like some night commerce and just villa type music just within the pitch behind it. And some of these are elegant and stunt type fares just within it. So it's just overall, this is a very gothic type project just within the pitch, which I was not expecting as far as those fares going to happen. Just some excellent type fare to kind of get that. It really delivers upon the aspect of just having this amalgamation, because I feel like this was kind of pushing the envelope in terms of sounds that we're going to develop just within the pitch. This makes me question if Pooh Shiesty is going to be able to do that again when he gets out of prison. Hopefully he continues to drop further albums, I'd say, but it's just within the pitch. So 10 out of 10. Social Score, I'll go ahead and give, like, I would probably say like a 9.5 out of 10. That's kind of a tricky relative aspect, kind of get towards that just within the tone. Just as I look after it here, the songs are very heavy hitting just within the aspect, but in terms of, apart from like a song like SUV's Black on Black, there's really not terribly much kind of like entry kind of lowering the learning curve as far as those pitches can happen. You have to kind of have a relative adaptation to like not just 2010s trap, which is kind of on this album in a mild degree, but then the advancement of the sounds that are trendy to like the 2020s as to what was kind of happening. Because this does try to push the envelope as far as trying to advance like the sounds and introduce some new conducts and products here. Definitely like a blend of Future and Pop Smoke, some of those type fares, along with like some good gothic type moments that just have like that haunted makeshift within a sense. There are some makeshift songs, Hunting Ops, Certified, some of those type pitches, but in terms of like the atmosphere, it's not quite as like I'm not gonna say it's not user friendly, but it's just kind of within the pitch that there is relatively like adaptation towards as far as those pitches can happen. So 9.5. But in terms of the future, like Pooh Shiesty's been in prison. This is his most recent project in terms of his solo stuff that he's done. He's supposedly getting out in 2026. Hopefully we can get him out sooner than that as far as those pitches can happen, just to be able to get some of these type fares. It's just an interesting aspect, but this is some good type fare here, classic within the tone behind it. Easy enough to kind of see that in this overall vicious and just swirling type project.